My girlfriend started uploading provocative photos out of nowhere after getting her new job. When I found out the reason, I kicked her out of my house. Before we go on, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us which city you're tuning in from. My name is Bernardo. I'm 27 years old, and a few months ago, I ended a 3-year relationship with who I thought was the love of my life. Her name is Giovanna. We met in college when we were both in our last semesters. I was studying visual arts and she communication. From the first time I saw her, she caught my attention, not only because of her physique, but because of her way of speaking. She was a very expressive person, always full of energy. We met thanks to a mutual friend who introduced us during a painting exhibition. She approached to congratulate me on a work of mine that was exhibited, and we started talking about cinema, art, and literature. I remember that conversation lasted hours. When the exhibition ended, I invited her for coffee. That was the beginning of everything. From then on, we started seeing each other frequently. Our faculties were close, so we'd coincide during breaks, and, without planning it, we started having lunch together almost every day. We had similar schedules, so when we left classes, sometimes we'd go for a walk in the park across from the university, or simply sit and chat on the main building stairs. Over time, the relationship became more formal. I was quite reserved and calm, while she was extroverted and sociable, but somehow we balanced each other out. At first, everything was perfect. We spent hours talking about our dreams. I wanted to dedicate myself to painting professionally, and she wanted to be an actress. She had that passion for theater and for the camera that only someone who truly loves what they do can have. She always talked about the roles she wanted to play, the directors she admired, and how someday she'd be in a series or a movie. I liked listening to her talk with such emotion. When we finished college, I decided to rent a small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was well located and had everything necessary. After a few months, Giovanna moved in with me. It was a mutual decision. She spent so much time at my place that she practically lived there. Back then, I worked at an art school teaching drawing to children and teenagers. I didn't earn much, but it was enough to pay the rent and utilities. Since I was little, my parents taught me that the man should take care of the main expenses, so I never asked Giovanna to pay half. She only took care of groceries and some minor things. Sometimes not even that because she didn't have much money, but I didn't care. I loved her, and it didn't bother me to make that effort. I always thought that's how a relationship should be, supporting each other, especially when the other person is starting their journey. During the first few months of living together, everything was very nice. We went shopping together, cooked, watched movies on weekends, and she even helped me prepare my work materials. We had arguments like any couple, but nothing out of the ordinary. Meanwhile, she kept trying to make her way as an actress. She went to castings for local theater plays, student projects, or commercials, but she didn't get anything. Every time she was rejected, she'd break down. She'd say she wasn't good enough or that she'd never make it. I always tried to encourage her by telling her that all beginnings were difficult and that talent wasn't enough. Perseverance was also needed. I accompanied her to several of those castings, and although it sounds cruel, now that I think about it, I think she was right about one thing. She wasn't very good at acting. She had enthusiasm, but lacked naturalness. Even so, I never told her. I always supported her. I didn't want to be the kind of partner who destroys the other's dreams. On the contrary, I did my best to motivate her. I even sold some paintings I had saved to help her pay for acting or body language courses. But as the months passed, the rejections affected her more. She started to get sad, frustrated, and compare herself to other girls who did get roles. I did my best to keep spirits up at home. However, over time, my own income began to decrease. The school where I worked reduced class hours, and I had to look for another source of income. That's when I started working as a food delivery driver in my free time. It wasn't something I was passionate about, but it was what there was. I told her not to worry, that it was only temporary. I stopped painting for a while because I didn't have enough time for everything, and that was something that hurt me quite a bit, but I was doing it for us because I wanted us to be okay. Giovanna noticed my tiredness. Some nights, she'd wait for me with dinner ready, but other times she was simply asleep when I arrived. I don't blame her. Sometimes I came home very late. Everything started to change when, after several failed attempts, she got a job at a small audiovisual production studio. She told me she met a producer during one of her castings. According to her, he told her she had potential, but that she needed to learn more about how things worked behind the scenes, so he offered her a position as a cable puller. Basically, she was a lighting assistant and helper on recordings. The salary was low, practically minimum wage, but Giovanna was thrilled. When she told me, I perfectly remember her excited face. I felt happy for her. Finally, something was going well for her. I hugged her and said, "That's how it starts, my love. You'll be a great actress someday. Go and absorb all the knowledge you can." That night, we had dinner together to celebrate. I felt proud of her. I thought that was the beginning of something great, but I didn't know that would be the beginning of the end for us. The first few days at her new job, everything seemed normal. She'd get up early, get ready with enthusiasm, carefully do her makeup, and put on professional clothes. I liked seeing her so motivated. Sometimes she'd come home tired, but happy, telling me things about the set, the equipment, the actors she worked with. Her eyes shone when she talked. I listened attentively, although many times I was so exhausted I could barely stay awake. However, after a couple of weeks, I started to notice small changes. I wouldn't know exactly when they began, but suddenly she started getting dressed up more than usual. She spent a lot of time in front of the mirror before leaving, trying on different outfits or makeup. I didn't say anything. I thought she just wanted to look good for her job. She also started wearing perfume daily, something she didn't do before. In fact, I remember she once told me she preferred not to spend money on those things because they were unnecessary, but suddenly she had several new perfumes. When I asked her, she told me they were gifts from her coworkers. I didn't give it importance. Little by little, she started uploading more frequent provocative photos to her social media. Before, she barely posted anything, and when she did, they were photos with me or landscapes. But out of nowhere, she started uploading selfies with more pronounced poses, tighter clothes, or with necklines. They weren't explicit photos, but noticeably more provocative than usual. Some even taken at her workplace with lights and cameras in the background. At first, I took it as something unimportant. I thought she was just gaining confidence or trying to project a more professional image, something common for those trying to enter the entertainment world. However, as the weeks passed, the posts became more frequent and more suggestive. The comments weren't long in coming. In each photo, there were dozens of men telling her things, some openly insinuating. What bothered me wasn't so much that, but that she didn't delete them or ignore them. Sometimes she even replied with emojis or ambiguous phrases. One day, while we were having breakfast, I calmly commented that those photos could give her the wrong impression, especially if she was trying to make her way as an actress. She got annoyed. She told me I had no right to tell her how to dress or how to show herself, that she felt good about herself, and that if it bothered me, it was my problem. That was the first time we argued seriously. It hurt because I didn't say it with bad intentions. I just wanted to talk about it, but she became defensive. I felt like I was suddenly a stranger in her life. After that, the distance between us started to grow. We didn't talk as much. We didn't make plans. When I tried to get close, she always said she was tired or had work things to do. I started to notice that she arrived later, and when I asked, she told me she had stayed to record some extra scenes or help with an assembly. I wanted to trust her. Really, I had never been jealous, but something inside me told me that something wasn't right. It wasn't just because of the photos or her changes in attitude. It was because of the way she started talking to me. She was no longer affectionate. She no longer hugged me. She no longer looked at me the same way. I remember one particular night. She arrived almost at midnight. I was waiting for her, worried. When she entered, she didn't even apologize. She just said she was late. She was wearing a dress I hadn't seen before, quite short, and she smelled of a new perfume. I tried not to say anything, but I couldn't help asking if she had gone out after work. She replied annoyed. Now I also have to give you explanations for everything I do. I remained silent. I didn't want to argue, but that night I couldn't sleep. From then on, everything started to go downhill. A few weeks passed since Giovanna began behaving differently. She was posting more and more photos, and I no longer knew how to react. I tried not to say anything, to keep calm, but inside I felt confused and hurt. Everything exploded the day she uploaded several bikini photos. They weren't new photos. I knew right away because I had taken them myself a year ago when we went to the beach together. Back then, they were nice memories. We had them saved on her phone and mine, but she had never published them. When I saw them on her social media, I froze. What surprised me most was that she had blocked the comments. I didn't understand why she was doing it right then. If it was just about self-confidence, why would she block the comments? Something didn't add up. I felt that this publication wasn't just another photo. That night, when she came home from work, I confronted her directly. We were in the living room. She came in smiling, but when she saw me serious, her expression changed. "Can we talk?" I told her. "About what?" she replied as she left her bag on the sofa. "About the photos you uploaded today," I said in a calm voice, though inside I was trembling. She rolled her eyes. "Again with that, Bernardo. I already told you it's not a big deal. I don't understand why you're uploading old photos, and precisely those ones right now. Before, you said you didn't like to show yourself like that, and now, out of nowhere, you do it and block the comments. It doesn't make sense." She crossed her arms and looked at me annoyed. "Really, I don't recognize you anymore. You've become jealous, controlling. All the time you're paying attention to my social media, to my things. Leave me alone, Bernardo. I'm not doing anything wrong." Her tone was so cutting it hurt me. I felt that any attempt at communication had broken down. I tried to say something else, but she just replied with "Enough. I'm tired," and locked herself in the bedroom. I was left alone in the living room, staring at the wall. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something inside me told me that not everything was okay, that there was something more behind her behavior. When I finally heard that she had fallen asleep, I slowly got up. I went to the bedroom and saw her deeply asleep. Her phone was on the nightstand. I hesitated for a few seconds. I'm not one to check other people's things, and I had never done it before, but this time I needed answers. I carefully picked up the phone. I tried to unlock it, but it had a new code. I tried several passwords. Her birth date, the day we started dating, her university ID number, nothing. I was about to give up, but I tried one last combination. The date we moved in together. The phone unlocked. I felt a knot in my stomach. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but my hand was shaking. I entered her gallery. There were hundreds of photos. Many of them were recent, taken on set, her with coworkers, with cameras, lights, makeup artists. Some were selfies in her studio uniform. Nothing seemed out of place. For a moment I thought I was exaggerating, that maybe the problem was me, my insecurity, my assumptions. I closed the gallery, took a deep breath, and decided to check her WhatsApp. There were many chats there, most with names I recognized from work. I opened them one by one, checking only the recent messages. All of them were completely normal. "Hi, Giovanna. Julio tells me if you can help us take his camera to the warehouse." Giovanna. "Mariel tells me if you can stay a couple of extra hours. We need to set up the scenery for tonight." Common work messages with nothing strange. I started to feel bad. I thought perhaps I was invading her privacy for no reason, that everything I was imagining was a product of my jealousy. But there was something I still couldn't get out of my head. The provocative photos had no explanation. Then, as I scrolled through the conversations, I saw a chat far down with a certain Lissy. It wasn't a name I remembered hearing before. The last message was from a couple of days ago. I hesitated but opened it. What I found took my breath away. The first message was from Lissy. "Hey, Giovanna. The strategy is working. Julian already talked to me." "Ha," Giovanna replied. "See? I told you." "Lucia told me that's how you get onto the menu." I stared at that phrase, not understanding. The menu. What were they talking about? I kept reading. On another day, Giovanna had written, "Lissy, you're a bitch. Ha, I already found out that Julian and you were locked up for a long time in his office." Lissy replied, "Well, what can I say, friend? I gave him some affection, and well, what do you think? He'll let me act in the next play. It'll be uploaded to YouTube and everything. I'll be an extra, but you have to start somewhere, right?" "Ha," Giovanna replied. "Well, I'm officially on the menu. After the photos I uploaded, several people have talked to me. Tonight, I'm going out with Ricardo." Lissy wrote, "Friend, but you have a boyfriend. Don't tell me you're going to cheat on him, little bitch." "Ha," Giovanna replied. Oh, friend, yes, he's my boyfriend and everything, but the guy works in a school teaching kids. He makes his little drawings and thinks he's going to retire with that. The truth is I'm about to leave him. I only have him because he pays for everything. The idiot. But as soon as Ricardo does it with me, I'll leave him in love. Haha, I know some tricks I learned in college. I know how to make them happy in seconds. I read those words again and again, unable to believe it. I felt my world collapse. I don't know how long I stared at the screen, but I kept reading. On another date, Lissy had written, "Tell me everything." Haha, I couldn't talk to you at work because Julian wouldn't leave me alone. I was in his office all day. The guy, despite being 55, has energy. Giovanna replied, haha. Well, look, the good news is we did everything, and he told me he'd consider putting me in the next play, but as a co-star. The bad news is he did it without protection, and I'm a little scared. Lissy replied, you're kidding me. Haha, I hope you do get pregnant. That way you'd have him completely tied down. At that moment, I heard a movement behind me. I turned and saw her. Giovanna was awake, standing in the doorway, looking at me with wide eyes. What are you doing with my phone? She said in a broken voice. I was crying. I couldn't hold back. What the __ did you do, Giovanna? Who is Ricardo? What is the menu? Explain everything to me right now, or get out of this apartment this instant. She put her hands to her face and started to cry. Then she fell to her knees, hitting the floor in frustration. Why did you look? Why? Why was I so stupid? She repeated between sobs. I didn't understand anything. My head hurt, my chest, everything. She kept crying for a few seconds, then took a deep breath and looked at me with red eyes. I'm sorry, my love. It was a mistake. You have to understand me. It's necessary to stand out. What are you saying? Here. What the __ is the menu. And what does it have to do with the photos? She was silent for a few seconds, then lowered her gaze. Okay, I'll tell you everything, she said in a trembling voice. At work, some girls started uploading provocative photos to get the attention of the producers. Then we send applications to certain contacts. If they like you, they add you to something they call the menu. It's not just here. It happens in several places. They pass around the girls' contacts. In theory, it's to see if you meet the physical requirements for certain roles, but you know how they are. They use it to go out with whoever they're interested in. I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And you accepted that? I asked in a broken voice. She nodded. Yes, but it wasn't what you think. I just wanted to stand out, to have an opportunity. It's very difficult to excel in this industry. You don't know how complicated it is. And that's why you went out with this Ricardo? That's why you slept with the producer? That's why you said I was an idiot? I screamed at her as tears fell uncontrollably. She started crying harder. I didn't mean that, Bernardo. I was angry, confused. Lissy was pressuring me. She told me it was the only way. It wasn't out of malice. It wasn't out of malice? I said incredulously. You humiliated me. You talked about me like I was trash. I supported you. I believed in you. And you were doing this. She crawled to my feet and knelt, crying. Forgive me, please. I swear it was a mistake. It won't happen again. I just wanted my career to take off. I didn't want to lose you, but it was too late. I couldn't look at her the same way. Something inside me broke forever. Get out with that, Ricardo, I told her in a dull voice. If your career matters so much to you, go with him. You have nothing more to look for here. She tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. I went to the closet, took her clothes, her things, everything that was hers, and took it to the door. It was almost 5 in the morning. The street was empty, the air was cold, and she was crying silently as she collected what she could. She didn't say anything else. She just left. I closed the door and leaned against it, trembling. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The person I had trusted the most had become someone completely unknown. That night, or rather that early morning, I understood that sometimes love isn't enough, that you can give everything for someone and still lose everything because not everyone values things the same way. Giovanna left, and with her, a part of me left that never came back. Several months have passed since everything ended, and although at first it was hard for me to accept it, today I can say it was the best thing that could have happened to me. After Giovanna left the house, I completely lost touch with her. She blocked me everywhere, which honestly I didn't care about. I thought everything would end there, that everyone would go on with their lives, but it wasn't like that. One day, a coworker wrote to me on WhatsApp and sent me a screenshot of a fairly popular Facebook group in the city, one of those gossip groups where people post stories, photos, and rumors. In the post, there was a photo of a man and a woman. The man was Ricardo, the producer Giovanna worked with, and the woman was her. The post said something like, "This guy has a wife and kids and is dating one of the girls who worked with him. Here are the photos, so people know who's who." The author of the post, as I understood it, was Ricardo's wife. She said she had discovered everything by checking her husband's messages, where she found conversations and photos with Giovanna. She said he promised her things, talked to her about projects, and had even paid for a small apartment for her to stay close to work. The group filled with comments. Some said it was her fault for getting involved with a married man. Others defended her, saying she probably didn't know he had a wife. The truth is, her name became known overnight, and not for something good. I found out she was fired from where she worked, and that apparently, after everything became public, no one wanted to hire her again. The producer himself was also fired, and his reputation was destroyed. I'm not going to lie. When I found out all that, I felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I was sad to think that the person I once loved had ended up embroiled in something like that. But on the other hand, I did feel some relief. Maybe it sounds cruel, but I was glad I hadn't stayed by her side, that I hadn't remained blinded by someone who was lying to me all the time. I thought of all the times I stayed up late working, so she wouldn't lack anything, the times I told her not to worry about money, that I would take care of everything, how I defended her even when others told me she was changing, and in the end, all of that meant nothing to her. Today I still work at the school teaching drawing classes. It's not the most lucrative job in the world, but I like it. I also still do deliveries occasionally, though not as much because I've gone back to what I truly love, painting. A few months ago, I started offering personalized paintings on social media, and to my surprise, it's gone quite well. Several people commission portraits or landscapes, and little by little, I've been recovering that passion I had set aside. I can proudly say that I'm living from what I love, something that a few years ago I thought wouldn't be possible. I don't have a partner now, and I'm not looking for one. I've focused on myself, on my projects, and on healing. And although at first it made me angry to think about all the time I lost with Giovanna, over time I understood that none of that was really a loss. I learned a lot from that relationship. I learned that you can't give everything expecting someone to change or thank you. I learned that love isn't carrying someone else's dreams while yours remain stagnant. And above all, I learned that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Sometimes memories come back from those first few years when everything seemed perfect, when we left classes and had coffee, when we talked about our plans and the future we imagined. It's inevitable to feel nostalgia, but there's no pain anymore. Only the lesson remains. I don't know what became of her. Maybe she learned something from all this, or maybe not. But honestly, I don't care anymore. I moved on with my life, and that's what counts. I share this story because I know there are many guys going through something similar. They give themselves completely to someone, sacrifice their time, energy, and money, believing that's love. But love isn't demonstrated by destroying yourself. If you're in a relationship where you feel like you give more than you receive, or where your partner makes you feel less for your true self, get out of there. Don't wait for them to betray you to realize your worth. I was blinded for a long time. I wanted to be the support, the protector, the one who solved everything. But no one teaches you that when you do that, you end up forgetting yourself. Today, when I look at my paintings hanging on the wall, I remember that each one represents a piece of my life, even the difficult moments. Pain also transforms into art if you know how to channel it. And although it sounds contradictory, I thank Giovanna for putting me through all that. Thanks to that experience, now I know what I don't want to live again.